It is a beautiful day in Dunedin. The sun is shining, and the competition has now begun for spots here in spring training. Shai Davidi, first and foremost, let's talk about the Ubaldo Jimenez signing by the Baltimore Orioles. He was one of the two guys the Blue Jays were targeting. That leaves Ervin Santana as really the only name free agent available. What do you see the chances are of the Blue Jays ending up with him? Are they still hot and heavy to bring him here to the Jays?
Well, I don't know that they were ever hot and heavy on Ervin Santana to begin with, but he's the last remaining obvious fit on the free agent market. You know, there are a bunch of other reclamation projects which the Blue Jays certainly don't need. They need someone to give them some stability and consistency in the rotation, and Santana is the guy who would provide that. But in terms of how hot and heavy they are, I think it remains the way it's been all winter. The Blue Jays have their price. I don't think that's anywhere near what Santana's seeking, and there's a bit of a stalemate between the two. Now, does Jimenez's signing push Alex to get involved more heavily at this point? I'm not sure, because one thing that we've seen so far in camp is that the Blue Jays like the internal options that they have, and whether that's posturing or not, they at least seem willing to go into the season with what they have.
Okay, let's expand on that. Let's assume for a second that the Blue Jays do not land Ervin Santana. We know 1 through 3 is pretty much set. Burley, Dickey, and Brandon Morrow. 4 right now is Jay Happ. Where do you see number 5 coming from? Because there is a pretty big list of guys all fighting for that spot.
Sure, there's a big group, but I think what you can do is probably narrow it down to 4 real contenders: Rogers, Esmil Rogers, and Todd Redmond, the incumbents who finished out last season in the rotation, and the 2 uppercomers, Drew Hutchison and Marcus Stroman, who we just saw throw in the bullpen here and put on an impressive display. Now, you probably know more or less what you're going to get from Rogers and Redmond, but there's some upside to Hutchison and Stroman in that the Blue Jays don't know what they are. They're both highly touted guys, and that ability is very tantalizing for the Blue Jays right now.
2 names you did not mention I want to ask you about: Ricky Romero, Kyle Drabek. What are the chances of either one of them even being in the mix as camp goes on?
Well, I mean, the Blue Jays are certainly going to have their eyes open to everyone. And if Ricky Romero can regain past form, hey, that's a great bonus. This is a guy who threw 3 consecutive seasons of 200 innings. You get that back for the starting rotation. The picture changes dramatically pretty quickly. By the same token, you know, Kyle Drabek, it shouldn't be forgotten about at all. I mean, he was really making strides before his elbow started barking him, leading to the Tommy John surgery a couple years ago. And the Blue Jays like a lot of the improved command that they've seen from him. But whether he's ready to jump in, and whether he's at the same point as Stroman and Hutchison are right now, I'm not certain yet.
Dustin McGowan is a guy that they are stretching out. He wants to be a starter. He's made no bones about it. Realistically speaking, do you see him beginning the season in the Blue Jays bullpen? Keeping in mind he has no more options, so they can't just let him go or send him down the minors.
Right. The Blue Jays certainly love what he did out of the bullpen. They think that's the natural spot for him. And whether or not he can become a starter depends solely on how healthy he is. I mean, this is a guy who's endured far more than almost any big league pitcher in terms of injury and coming back from injury. And if he's able to find that his elbow holds up, then more power to him. But the Blue Jays also want to be cautious with him. They don't want to take the risk because they like what they have in him as a reliever, and they'd rather have him as a reliever than have him back on the disabled list.
Well, there aren't a lot of spots to be won here at Blue Jays spring training, but there are a number of players all vying for the few spots that do remain.